This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
I screamed because there's another foot of snow.
The former House Speaker suffered an injury.
This is one of the largest and most intense aerial assaults.
These drones are the size of SUVs, and we're supposed to believe our government has no idea what they are?
This is your throttle.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. Lake effect snow moving out. Warnings and travel bans have been lifted in western New York and Pennsylvania, but what a wild 48 hours that was.
I snowblowed this morning and tried to get out for work, and then work was canceled, so I went back inside. And then I came back out again and I screamed because there's another foot of snow.
She's not wrong. We got nearly a season of snow this week. Some spots 6 feet in 7 days.
The average amount of snowfall per year here in Erie is 8.5 feet. So winter is just beginning and we are getting close to the yearly average in mid-December. That's wild.
Kevin Williams calling for a little warm up after the freeze tease. His forecast coming up in a few minutes. 84-year-old California Democrat Nancy Pelosi is in a hospital overseas this afternoon. CBS reporter Stacey Lynn.
The former House Speaker suffered an injury on a trip to Luxembourg and has been admitted to a hospital for evaluation. In a statement, her spokesperson said she's currently receiving excellent treatment from doctors and medical professionals.
She's there with a delegation to mark World War II's Battle of the Bulge. Russia's trying to take out Ukraine's power grid in an all-on air assault today.
This is one of the largest and most intense aerial assaults on Ukraine, virtually since Russia's full-scale invasion nearly 30 years ago. Russia, in this specific attack, launched 93 missiles and almost 200 drones targeting critical infrastructure, namely the energy sector.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken made a surprise visit to Iraq today. He said he hopes countries there will work together to keep ISIS terror out after the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria.
No one knows the importance of that more than Iraq because of the ongoing presence of ISIS or Daesh in Syria. And we are determined to make sure that Daesh cannot reemerge.
On his way home, 26-year-old Travis Timmerman is no longer being held captive in Syria. He was flown out today on a U.S. military helicopter and handed over to the State Department. Timmerman was found in the streets of Damascus after the fall of Assad's regime. He said he'd been in a Syrian prison for 7 months. New Jersey's governor has made a plea directly to President Biden asking for help to solve the mystery of the drones being flown over his state and parts of Pennsylvania, too. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle agree.
These drones are the size of SUVs, and we're supposed to believe our government has no idea what they are? I mean, that had better not be true.
They should be shot down if necessary.
Promo Op Shanani is an engineering professor.
It's hard to ascertain whether these are really like small aircrafts that are being piloted by somebody in them, or are these like slightly bigger type drones that are being remotely piloted.
On the other side of the country, 3,000 people were allowed back into their homes today in Malibu after that California wildfire. Firemen finally getting the upper hand. This woman is a newlywed who returned to find her home gone. Friends started a GoFundMe page to help the couple out.
Thank you to the people of Malibu for being such kind neighbors and such sweet people. Like, I've never seen a community that strong and that resilient. So I just really have to thank them for being there for us. And we are there for you guys as well.
Prepare to pay more to watch TV. YouTube TV is getting more expensive.
Starting in January, the streaming service, which is owned by Google parent company Alphabet, is raising its monthly rate from $72.99 to $82.99. The company says the $10 increase is due to the rising costs of content.
Banks and bank trading groups issued a statement to the press today. They're suing the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau over their final rule to limit all overdraft fees to $5 apiece. That rule is set to take effect in October. Egg prices are on the rise again, due in part to a bird flu outbreak. Since last November, the average price for a dozen large eggs jumped 38%, $3 $2.65 compared to $2.14 just a year ago. Universities in New York and Pennsylvania and elsewhere are urging international students to return from Christmas break before President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. We get more on this story from Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, Cornell, University of Rochester, and Penn, just a few of the institutions telling those students to be back in the U.S. before January 20th, fearing once in office, Trump might repeat a 2017 travel ban that restricted people from countries including Iran, Libya, and Somalia from entering the U.S. Cornell's administration tells students the immigration landscape is likely to change under Trump and predicts a travel ban is likely to go into effect soon after Trump's inauguration. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
And the holiday travel period that starts next weekend is expected to be record-breaking. AAA says about 120 million people will travel 50 miles or more between December 21st and January 1st. That's back to pre-pandemic levels. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, the Capital Connection crew on standby to report on the happenings in New York and Pennsylvania state capitals. Jason McGuire and Michael Gear on deck next after weather with Kevin Williams.
For tonight, mainly clear, but some lake snow and snow flurries along the southeast shore of Lake Ontario. They're spreading south into the northern Syracuse suburbs, and those areas could see several inches of lake fluff. Some leftover flurries fading east of Lake Ontario. Otherwise, clear and cold tonight. Low temps, single digits and teens. Plenty of sunshine tomorrow. High temps, mid-20s to mid-30s. Sunday, cloudy, a little light snow, ice, and rain later in the day and at night. High temperature Sunday in the 30s.
Thank you, Kevin. Time to check in with the Capital Connection crew. Michael Gear with PA Family and Jason McGuire with New York Families. We start with the topic of gambling. Let's listen in.
There was a big study on gambling this week, Michael, and I really couldn't believe it. I know we've talked about just how prevalent it is in Pennsylvania. I didn't realize that it actually leads the country when it comes to tax revenue from gambling. New York State second, Nevada is third. What's fueling the gambling craze in the Commonwealth, and why should people be concerned?
They should be concerned because just looking at the numbers that have come from the state on gambling in Pennsylvania says that tax revenues reached a record level last year of $2.5 billion. But what they really don't relate is the numbers of dollars lost, $6 billion lost by Pennsylvanians. They call that revenue. That's actually money lost. And the reason it's so big in Pennsylvania is because we have so many different ways to lose money. Casino slot machines and table games, internet gaming, sports wagering, video gaming terminals, and fantasy sports contests. Families are paying the price for it. College funds that are being drained out by a dad or a mom that have a gambling addiction that the state is fostering with the expanded gambling we have in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Jason, you said this when Proposal 1 passed back on Election Day, that the State Board of Regents would be revisiting the issue of transgender-friendly sports policies in high schools. Will that provide an impetus for the state to act? What might that guidance look like? Would it be a case-by-case basis, or do you think they'll have a statewide mandate? You will do this.
Because of how the election played out in New York and across the nation, and because of that difficulty for Governor Kathy Hochul coming up in 2026, there may be some pause at the Board of Regents. But I anticipate there will be some changes, and we'll have to be vigilant as the regents may be looking to make these moves, but they'll let things cool down for a little bit first.
Michael, you're writing about this on your website. Planned Parenthood is planning to endorse school board candidates next year. That's when all the school boards will have their votes, is in 2025. I wonder what's prompting Planned Parenthood to get involved at the grassroots level like this in public education.
Well, this, for the most part, is a very new initiative by Planned Parenthood. Only one school district in the last elections last year did they engage in that. That was Manheim Township in Lancaster County. Number one, they want to keep conservative school board members from being elected. Planned Parenthood sees a growth industry with young people when they can get into the schools to promote the transgender ideology. Planned Parenthood is the largest purveyor of these cross-sex hormones and puberty-blocking drugs that are used to foster the transgender ideology. So it's a growth industry for them, as well as promoting abortion, which they do in the schools when they can get in there.
Lots of education issues this week, Michael. Recent litigation was settled by the Pennsylvania State Education Department. 3 school districts sued the state over, for lack of a better term, woke curriculum in the classroom. Were you surprised that the state settled this lawsuit?
Well, we're very happy that the state settled the lawsuit in the way that they did, which is to rescind these policies. What the Department of Education was trying to force through these regulations that they passed and have now rescinded is that teachers and those coming out of teachers' colleges be required to believe basically woke ideology. Among the things that they're required to believe, for example, is to believe and acknowledge that microaggressions are real and take steps to educate themselves about the subtle and obvious ways in which they are used to harm and invalidate the existence of others. So this is really kind of religious indoctrination by the Department of Education to force beliefs on teachers. We're supposed to teach things, but not to force beliefs on teachers and those who are in the classroom. And so it's a great victory.
Well, hey, New York's war on gas, Jason, is about to come to a head. We've had Senator George Borrello on this issue sounding the alarm. I thought it was interesting. There's a town on Long Island that's already banned gas-powered leaf blowers. In a couple of years, new homes in New York must be electric only. What's this rush to electrification going to mean for the average New York State resident?
Well, it's going to cost you more for these electric devices as opposed to traditional gas-powered. It's also going to mean less quality of life. The electric mowers, the electric blowers, those kinds of things tend to cut out a lot faster than when you can just put some gas in something, let alone the cars. You know, I was recently involved in a car purchase, and they want to move us to an electric car, but I cannot even make the trip to Albany, one trip in an electric car. It'll be gas for me, and I think gas for a lot of New Yorkers across the state of New York.
Yeah, we'll see if Governor Hochul backs off that. I was going to say the gas pedal, but I guess that'd be using the wrong term. There was a story on Keystone Reports this week about the Amish vote in the recent election, how much that influenced the winner in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania does have the largest Amish population of any state in the country, but most of them do not vote still, even today.
Yeah, it has been changing. One of the reasons is government entanglement. The government tentacles are coming into the Amish community in terms of how they do their farming and environmental regulations, and then dealing with things like can they sell raw milk and things like that they're used to doing, and the government agents coming in and actually arresting farmers and things in the Amish community. That's awakening them to the need to engage in the political process.
There's another 5 minutes of this feature online anytime at familylife.org. Just click on podcasts and Capital Connection. You can also listen on Spotify. Time next for tonight's market report, brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Wall Street is closing mixed to end a losing week. At the final bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 86 points to 43,828. The S&P 500 fell less than a single point to 6051, and the Nasdaq rose 23 points to 19,926. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
Hi, I'm Rob West with a Faith and Finance Minute. A listener recently called with a question we should all ask ourselves. My husband and I have more money than we'll ever need. We give generously, but we struggle with knowing where the balance is between giving most of it away and spending some on ourselves. Well, we all need to determine how much is enough. The answer comes as we seek the will of the Lord in prayer. You might struggle to give 10% to the Lord's work, or you may be able to give much more. What's important is that you do it cheerfully. Let the Lord guide you. As Solomon says in Proverbs 16, commit your works to the Lord and your plans will be established. Then confidently enjoy God's provision, thankfully and without guilt or regret, knowing that enough is enough. Get biblical answers to your financial questions in the FaithFi community. Download FaithFi, Faith and Finance in your app store or visit faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, your own personal airplane that flies itself. No joke, they're testing them right now. We've got that story after weather with Kevin Williams.
Well, we're looking at cold weather overnight and through your Saturday, the low 11 to 16, but single digits in some snow-covered rural valleys. A little bit of leftover lake snow southeast of Lake Ontario should fade. Those areas could see several inches of lake fluff. Saturday morning, it could be a light coating between Rochester and Syracuse. Otherwise, mostly sunshine tomorrow, the high mid-20s to mid-30s. Cloudy Sunday with a little rain, snow mix late. There'll be enough snow and sleet in the mix to produce some tricky travel, especially Sunday night across central and eastern Pennsylvania and New York's eastern southern tier.
Okay, Kevin, finally at 5, how about this? Want to fly yourself home from work? A prototype was just test flown this week, a self-flying electric airplane, the perfect size just for you.
3, 2, 1.
And it feels a lot like something you may have driven. This is streamlined like a battery-powered car almost.
It is.
Just like a Tesla, the cockpit is computer-driven and touchscreen.
We're in the cockpit, and we're just going to turn the avionics on here.
Okay.
Your side sticks here is how you control all the control surfaces, and this is your throttle.
Kyle Clark is the founder and CEO of Beta Technology, building new aircraft that's turning the aviation world on its tail. This particular plane is a 6-seater. It can fly 1,700 feet per minute and has a 250-mile range. Beta's planes are already running test flights for the U.S. military. They've even designed a plane that can do vertical landings like a helicopter, so the average person just needs a cement slab in their backyard. No runway required.
Short hops. You're going from Boston to New York. It's an annoying drive in the traffic. Do the flight, it's 40 minutes versus a 3-hour drive.
NBC reporter Jay Gray asked, will the average American be able to use it, though, to fly longer distances? Beta's CEO said soon.
Might one day I be able to fly a battery-powered plane from New York to L.A.?
Absolutely. Every 7 years, batteries double their energy density. It doesn't take long to get across the country.
And that is the world that we live in for Friday, the 13th of December. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.